You know ID in the town all day. ID in the SEA. You know ID in the town all day. ID in the SEA.
Hello and welcome to episode 449 of the fabulous Peltoncast, sponsored by our friends at Pagliacci Pizza. I'm your co-host, Kevin Pelton.
And I'm Tristan Carcino.
And we are coming to you from different locations. I'm in Seattle, Washington, home of the four-time WNBA champion Storm.
And I'm coming to you from Renton, Washington, home of the Super Bowl 48 champion Seattle Seahawks. It is not an edition of the Peltoncast.
Oh, no. Really
it's,
not.
It's episode 300? 400?
400.
400 redacted.
It never really had occurred to me that the number of the Super Bowl that was shockingly canceled was also the same number as the Seahawks' biggest rivals, the San Francisco 49ers.
Wow. Right now.
I had never thought about it. I never connected those two dots before. Wow. Really makes you think. I was thinking earlier about how like Super Bowl 49, I think it really did it did break the Seahawks' brains for the most part.
I don't know if that's true because I was going back and looking at numbers from the season after. And
they were a very good team
Seahawks,
that year. I don't dispute that.
They won the DVOA championship the year
after. That is
after.
correct.
They just happened to lose a really hard game that they would have won if there was another quarter. So I think
but even if they had won, I still think
that broke the Seahawks' brains was, get this, if you're a hater, time.
Oh wow.
That's what happens. If it happens to, it's like, did all of these Super Bowl losses break the 49ers' brains? They lost a Super Bowl, they went back. You just don't go to the Super Bowl that often as an NFL franchise.
Yeah, but the
unless you
Seahawks
happen to have Tom Brady or Pat Mahomes.
The Seahawks specifically had a division between, I would say, their offense and their defense, but it really was just their quarterback and their defense. In a way that, I don't know that the 49ers, their downfall this year was internal turmoil.
And so this division led to them being the best team in the league the next year. We are
don't
so
think
divided. We played even better.
I don't think it revealed itself in 2015.
Okay, so the thing revealed itself. I'm just fucking on it. It revealed itself after time passed and players got older and more injured. Or maybe you're creating a narrative where there isn't one, and the only is time.
Well, time...
You're making an narrative. The thing that it did destroy is me anytime a team gets near the goal line, like the Arizona Cardinals, because the Seahawks should have won this last weekend. We would have crushed that Vikings team. It was so frustrating to see. Every team, I'm like,
man, that Rams pass rush is mean. Jared Verse. I'm feeling like, the whole thing about, the Seahawks were so close to drafting George Kittle. I feel like we're pretty close to the Seahawks being like, there were people in the room that wanted Jared Verse more than Byron Murphy.
I mean, wouldn't be bad. I think the Seahawks pass rush does, good God, ninth grade as a rookie.
Yeah, no,
I
Jared
think the
Verse.
Seahawks pass rush may do the same thing or similar against the Vikings in round 2. They probably should have won that game. It's like one fucking breakdown.
I don't know if you're aware of this. They did not do that against the Vikings in week 17 or whatever.
Well, maybe the Rams decided not to do it for an entire season.
It was just really a tribute to the clutch quarterback play of Matthew Stafford that once again has the Rams making a playoff run.
That's all right. Fly, Eagles, fly, baby. Fly, Eagles, fly.
The listeners not yet heard our discussion of which Discord channels you do and do not read. Did you see the discussion of should we hope the Seahawks, the Rams make the Super Bowl just for the Tristan content?
It's not going to happen. You can hope all you want, but they don't put bad teams in the Super Bowl. One
But
time.
they
Only when they
rarely
played
did.
the Rams. One time did
the
they
thing
put
is,
a bad
they used to put bad teams in the Super Bowl a lot. I don't know if you remember when the Giants made it regularly and often won. They were like a wild card team, and then they'd just be in the Super Bowl all of a sudden.
You can hope all you want, but it's not going to happen. It doesn't matter. The Eagles are going to fucking crush the Rams this weekend.
Well, we'll see whether time is the biggest hater for you or for the Rams.
Me and Mateo right here.
Oh, how's he feeling?
It's like Predator. Oh, he was rocking a Saquon jersey. He was riding high.
The Saquon jersey.
He didn't think Keyshawn Nixon was down at all.
The Saquon jersey is pretty. Yeah, I doubt he did. The Saquon jersey is pretty fresh, I gotta say.
Yeah. No, he's got both of his jerseys are, oh God, what's the color called?
Kelly Green, I believe,
Kelly
is the
Green.
Eagles.
I was gonna say Terry Green. No, Kelly Green. Both the Hurts and Saquon ones they're really nice.
I think there's a
Although I like
stereotype.
every throwback jersey, so any team jersey that a team wore in the '90s, I'm like two thumbs up.
I think there's a stereotype that men don't know as many, or not even a stereotype, but maybe a truism that men don't know as many colors as women on average. And I feel like for people who are obsessive about football team colors, that's the way you even the score by knowing that the Eagles wear Kelly green.
Okay.
All right. Well, should we get to our toasts?
Yeah.
Well, we start with a congrats to third Pelton brother Jamal Crawford,
There we go.
who it was announced on Tuesday is joining NBC's NBA coverage as a lead game analyst starting in 2025-26 when the NBA returns to NBC for the first time since the Sonics were very good.
Wow.
I mean, not actually. The last season, the Sonics were in the playoffs the last season of the NBA on NBC, but it was their first round loss to San Antonio in 2002.
Wow. I remember that series so well too.
Yeah.
It's Chuck Person series.
No, Chuck Person's you remember it so well. You've conflated it with the
Wait,
series
okay.
2 years earlier against Utah, which was the Chuck Person series.
Wait, the San Antonio series?
Yeah, this is 2002. Sonics
Okay,
won.
nope, I don't remember it at all. I take it back. I do
Sonics
not
won
remember
game
this
2
series at
in
all.
San Antonio. Game 3, I think the Spurs won pretty comfortably at Key Arena. We were both there. Game 4, Tim Duncan had a death in the family, I believe, was out for the game, and the Sonics cruised. And then Game 5, San Antonio won pretty
I
comfortably.
actually, now that you say that, I do remember. And going to that game 5 and just knowing that there was no
But we didn't go
chance.
to it.
But no, going into it,
Oh,
I
yeah.
kind of remember it as being like,
Whereas
oh,
Game
this
5
is
in Utah,
interesting.
Sonics should have won the game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Braved. I'm sad about basketball now. There was one this was a Sunday. They had Sunday games, right? NBC.
Yes, that was their marquee games was the Sunday doubleheader, maybe even tripleheader sometimes.
I do recall a Sunday game. This is when Jordan came back, and I think it was in Seattle. No,
Well,
it must have been
Jordan
there.
didn't play in Seattle in 1995, and no games were played in Seattle in 1995.
This is after he came back, though.
So you're saying in November 1995?
I think. Well, there was the one game that I went to that they beat them.
Correct, which was not on NBC, but it was Sunday. It was a Sunday, but it was Sunday night. Yeah.
Yeah. But there was another game that I remember, and I think you were there, but I wasn't. I want to say because I remember being home alone and just sort of being like, "Oh, they're going to kill the Sonics." This might have even been Vin Baker Sonics, though.
Oh, so you're saying, well, this could have been 96-97. The rematch of the finals was a Sunday afternoon. Yes, this was the famous Sean Kemp Keg Steakhouse game.
Oh, that was that game. And
yes.
And the Sonics just looked.
Speaking of the beginning of the end.
They looked sluggish, and the Bulls just kind of beat the crap out of them.
The moment that I always point to in this game is, I mean, I
love that you have a moment you point to in a game that happened 30 years ago,
and that I always point to. I'm regularly discussing this game that happened in 1996 or maybe 1997. My recollection,
much more successful podcast if we did almost any other subject aside from our esoteric Seattle sports podcast, but. If we did like a Sonics
history podcast,
a season rewatch podcast starting in like 91, 92, something like that.
We'd have to start when George Karl took over, yeah.
And we did game by game breaking down, or like maybe we'd do like only key games. This is our fake podcast that would be way more successful than the current podcast that we have right now.
Well, the play-by-play for this game does exist, so I could, if I tried hard enough, test my recollection on this. Which appears not to be true.
Did it involve Judd Buechler?
Well, my recollection is there was a point, I thought it was at the start of the second quarter, where the Sonics came out with 5 reserves and the Bulls had Jordan on the court. And I was like, what are we doing here? And I was furious about it. But the play-by-play record indicates that this did not happen at the start of the second quarter. It may have happened at the start of the fourth quarter, at which point it would have led to a 2-0 run.
That really was the thing that I was thinking the most about when I was at the Husky basketball game. is just not knowing the team well enough to know what I should be angry about.
I mean, the thing about the Huskies is like if rotation decisions, like you're sort of just grabbing players
No,
out of a
it's
hat
really all
outside
over the
of
place.
Great
But
Osborne and maybe Tyler Harris and lately DJ Davis, who
I
missed
like DJ
Sunday's game
Davis a
because he
lot.
was sick.
But I was thinking about that like in the the heyday with Romar in the early 2000s, and it would be like, oh, you don't have Trey Simmons out there, right? Or it's like you need to get Bobby back in the game. And now I'm just like, I don't know, right? Like maybe some of the big guys, I'd be like, okay, Casey Ebekwe's got to go, but beyond that, like I just do not know the team well enough, or maybe the team is just like not different enough.
Exactly. Like I don't think the guards have really established enough of a difference to have like a strong take between Louis Courtwright and now I'd have to think of another non-DJ Davis guard. Tyree Iheanacho.
Yeah, Iheanacho. That's the thing that like I've told
DJ
a lot
Davis
of people
was an ankle injury, by the way, on Sunday.
He didn't play in that game?
No, he did not. So moral victory for the Huskies.
Oh yeah, would have won otherwise. I watched a lot of it and didn't even realize DJ Davis wasn't playing. So I've watched every Big Ten game, at least chunks of it. Some I turned off very quickly. More on that later.
Yes.
But when we talk about the Sonics coming back, and I'm just like, I don't know if I'll care. Like, I truly do not remember really what it's like to care about an NBA team. And to be like these, like it's a random road trip and they're playing at 4:00.
This box score has vindicated my memory.
There we go.
I was upset that David Wingate was playing, I guess. I was not a big David Wingate guy, at least during his first stint in Seattle. He came back and played one game in 2001, and it was amazing. David Wingate played 850 in this game. The Sonics were minus 16 during that stretch. Sean Kemp, I mean, it was not a great game for him by any stretch of the imagination. 16 points, 5 of 11 shooting, 6 turnovers, 5 fouls in this one. But he was +4. They were +4 with him on the court. They lost this game because the bench contributed absolutely nothing.
No one talks about how it was Wingate who did it.
With all due respect to David Wingate.
The little beats. Well, that's the thing about nostalgia is just time, literally time. Biggest hater. It's also the biggest nostalgia maker because I think I'm going to make a point later about a certain coach. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, it's not Lorenzo Romar. It always is Lorenzo Romar, of course, but it's not him.
I mean, Michael Jordan, by the way, in this game had 45 points on 19 of 28 shooting. It was pretty good.
Nostalgia just makes us remember that
no other Chicago player scored double figures in a game that won by 7 points.
They only won by 7? It was that close?
Yeah.
It was like a garbage 7 points though, wasn't it? Wasn't it like one of those?
No, I don't think so.
It was actually close at the end.
I mean, I don't know if it was like a one possession game, but
I think the Sonics.
I mean, it was like a 9-point game
run to make it closer than it actually.
I guess
was.
They did. Yeah, they were up 18 with 5:33 left.
That's what I was going to say.
But the Sonics got it down to 8 with 2:13 left, so it's a real game at that point.
I'm going to give that a maybe. Anyway, I will be fascinated to see if a team ever returns. Seems like never. It's been a long time. Just getting older. And if I will remember enough to be like, oh, I'm excited to see this player or whatever. Like, we got to get more minutes for this player because I just truly do not recall what it's like.
I think you will, because the thing about the NBA is there's not 350 other teams for players to transfer from. So even when players come to the Sonics, come and go, you're going to have a better familiarity because you'll have learned of many of them.
I'll have watched way more basketball if the Sonics return.
In my 10 players to watch.
There we go. I think
unless, of course, I'm running the team, in which case the 10 players to watch will just be the team. Well, what if you make the whole team out of the 10 players to watch?
I like the confidence of you, not just working for the team. You said running the team.
That was not meant seriously. Anyway, congrats to Jamal Crawford. Great choice. No, I mean, obviously Jamal does terrific work and excited to see him get this platform. Congrats also to Leonard Williams, who was chosen NFC Defensive Player of the Month for December, an award that was curiously announced on January 9th. Now, I get that you probably want to include the first weekend's games of January, but we recorded a podcast last week on a Wednesday, and they still hadn't announced the player of the week for games that ended on Sunday. What the fuck is taking so long, NFL? This is a legit question.
This is called accountability for the Peltoncast. Hey, buddy, you're not going to get away with this again.
You know my feelings about the term accountability.
Announce the NFL defensive player, the conference players of the month slightly sooner, NFL, next time. I love how agitated you are about this specific point.
It's ridiculous. Why is the player of the, like, they do the players of the week on like Wednesday? Like, yeah, bro, do it on Tuesday. It's not going to take you that long to sort through it. You're not like running a supercomputer to figure out who's winning this award. Come on.
Yeah, Roger. You and your bigwig fat cat
the number
friends
one
can't sit around anymore. The Peltoncast here is here to check you. Yeah.
Look, what are we doing except speaking truth to power?
Yeah, this one point that we are very angry about.
Maybe not as much on Talking Taco Time.
Wow. We're
willing to call out Taco Time.
We would not for our sponsor Pagliacci because there's nothing to call out because it is perfect. The only thing to call out is that there isn't a location closer to me.
And that is true. It is your single biggest complaint.
I mean, it actually
more Pagliacci.
You have to drive to Bellevue. I've got a single problem with you people.
Well, you know what you do have in written.
What is that?
Youth Basketball League.
Wow, we're there.
That
already?
Was a natural segue. It's time for the return of Coach's Corner. A new season is not just upon us. It's already started.
Okay. We have to get intro music for Coach's Corner.
Do we?
The John Tesh, can we at least get that?
I mean, this pod is already not available on YouTube for very weird RSS related reasons that seem to be YouTube's issue, but that would also prevent it from being uploaded to YouTube if I put in the round ball.
Did that happen
rock,
when you did the Carlos Santana thing?
Yeah, I told you it happened. Yeah.
Oh, dang. All right, fine. We won't have an introduction for Coach's Corner. Anyway, this last weekend, game 1 of the Renton second grade Celtics, second grade co-ed basketball Celtics, all boys for the Celtics. Anyway, we get there beforehand. I told the parents we've been so much more organized this year. And before the game, one of the parents was like, thank you so much for how seriously you're taking the season, the communication, everything. Because I like I said, the first practice, I was like, we're going to show up, we are going to kick teams' asses, and we're going to go home. We're not going to do anything else. We're not going to have any altercations, nothing. We're not going to taunt anybody, nothing else. And so naturally, I was very nervous heading into game 1 that there would be altercations and taunting.
I mean, it's like when you tell someone not to look somewhere. Where do they want to look? Right there.
Right at the altercations. So we get there. The team is collected. I see the opponents, and I was going to warn everybody in Game Changer beforehand and just be like, just so you know, those are first graders playing before us. Don't get too excited. Because I thought that the parents would look in, see the game beforehand, and then see that they were first graders and be like, we're way better than these kids. And be like, hey, competition's going to be stiffer this year in second grade. And I'm looking at the other team, and I'm just like, these kids might be pretty good. They're looking pretty athletic in the lobby of the Highlands Neighborhood Center beforehand. And I'm like, I think I may have bit off a little bit more than I could chew here with regards to telling this team that we were going to go undefeated and possibly not give up a point all season. So anyway, I'm scouting every single kid. It's
like Pete Carroll, I believe, famously during Geno Smith's first season as a starter, set the 72 Dolphins as a goal for that team. He was like, why can't we go undefeated? This is you with your second grade team.
Yeah, no, I'm literally just like, damn, that kid looks pretty athletic. I'm like, he looks big. Oh, fuck. So anyway, we get out there. Our game's about to start. I get them into a layup line. I'm all about that layup line because I just want to appear organized. That to me is the number one, the most intimidating thing aside from doing the haka, which we don't do yet. But to appear more intimidating to the other team is just being organized, precise on it. I'm like, do this, go. Let's go. Let's look organized. The other teams, this is a thing that happens often, running lines pregame. And they started doing that. I'm like, should I be upset that I don't have people like running back and forth between half court pregame?
Fake hustle.
Anyway, we're missing 2 players. We're down 2 players. I had to shuffle my lineups completely because, as you know, number one about these games, as a reminder, they do not keep score. That is how competitive this league is.
Always an important place to start.
As another reminder, every player must play an equal amount of minutes if possible. So normally it's 5 on, 5 off because it's 10 players. If somebody is missing, I have to go through complicated lineups. And there was like the morning of one, I literally had lineups beforehand, had them cleared with the assistant coach. I was like, we're good. I have different combos of people. I have like 2 big men that I want to rotate on and off the court, a couple of different players, some defenders where I was like, we need one of these on and off the court at all times. Because again, I am planning for this. So lineups are shuffled. I have it all figured out now. And the game starts. First play of the game, ball is passed in. Kid dribbles down the court for our team, throws it straight out of bounds. And I was just like, oh boy, I may have been wrong. I was so tense. And so like we just cannot hit shots for the first 5 minutes of the game. The other team's defending pretty well. They're getting pretty good shots. It's 2-2 through about 5 minutes of the first quarter of the game. There was a kid who stepped out of bounds. There was like a brand new ref, and there was a kid who stepped out of his foot was out, but the ball was out of bounds, like right next to our bench. And I was like, to the ref, I was like, he's out of bounds. And the ref was like, but the ball isn't. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't matter, but fine. And it was one of those things where I was like, I just can't not say this. Like I saw a thing that was wrong happen, and the words had to come out of my mouth, an infraction. Anyway, we go back and forth. It's again, we're not hitting shots. We're getting pretty good shots. I'm very frustrated on the bench. And I'm just like, people, like I have promised every single one of your parents, we're not going to lose a single game. Finally, we go back and forth. We end up getting to 10-2 in the first quarter. And I'm like, you know what? I think an 8-point lead. These games are so close generally. I'm like, I think we will be able to hold on to this 8-point lead for the entire game. Come out in the second quarter. Because I'm like, maybe they're saving their best players for the second quarter. I don't know, right? I have no, there's no scouting for these teams or anything. Come out.
Yeah.
They were not saving their best players for the second quarter. They definitely had starters and subs. 16-0 Celtics in the second quarter, leading to a final score in the game. Do you want to guess what it was?
58-10.
52-14. You were pretty close.
Wow.
A 52-14 absolute domination from the Renton Celtics in the game. I had it set up. This was almost accidental, but I did have in the fourth quarter, just in case, our Death Star lineup. And wow. We were also
have a Death Star lineup.
I mean, yeah, everybody has a Death Star lineup, don't you? I had the 2 bigs together. It was basically like those 2 bigs are the best players on the team. In the game they scored, because again, we keep score, the league might not. One of them had he had a straight up 20 and 18 for Jack in this game, a monster. That's on 10 of 16
nearly
shooting.
A 2020. That
is on 10 of 16 shooting, a plus 24. And then the other big, he played 3 quarters. The other big, who only played 2 quarters, had 12. He had a 12 and 6. So I had both of them out there, and then 3 other players who could all play. And I was like, I almost felt bad. I was like maybe going to pull off one of those players for the fourth quarter, even though I had it like set beforehand. But then I heard that he's not going to be there next weekend. So I was like, all right, fine. And his dad is the assistant coach. I was like, all right, we'll give him the Death Star lineup. Finished that quarter 16-4. We only gave up 7 baskets the entire game. And I was like, man, maybe I should make them run a line for each basket they gave up. Because I got to practice after. And I was like, we did a lot of things good. B, we could have done a lot of things better was at the practice. I was like, I know we won 52-14, but some of our defensive positioning wasn't amazing. We could have given up only 6 baskets in this game. Maybe less. And the other thing that was amazing about it was we celebrated. There was no taunting, no altercations, nothing at all. After the game, the players, the parents from the other team were like, wow, you guys are really good. I'm like, yes, we did. And this is only week 1. Let's not go each other's just yet. But after week 1,
suck each other's popsicles just yet.
We showed up, we kicked their ass, and then we went home. Whew. It was such a relief. Honestly, it was such a relief because, again, I promised everybody. I was like, this is what we're doing in this game. It was Mateo did fine. He was 2 for 3 though. He had the best field goal percentage of anybody on the team, and it was a plus 26. So the 56 total rebounds for our team was pretty impressive.
So is someone surreptitiously keeping score for these games?
Luka's doing the game changer. Yeah.
Okay.
20. We took 80 shots. How did we take that many shots?
Very much me keeping score at your games energy, I would say.
You didn't have shit like this, though. I've got a full box score with plus and minus. I've got advanced stats.
Do you have true shooting percentage?
I don't think we do, but we've got steals, like, field goal attempts. Nobody shoots any threes, but all of these attempts, all this info, which it would have been very fun to have had when we were kids.
Absolutely.
Anyway, week 1 was down. And we definitely accomplished what we set out to accomplish so far. I said the defense, I was like, nobody's scoring on us. That's one thing that I know. It was the same thing for flag football, which is these same kids. Like, these kids can play defense. And one breakdown in flag football might mean a touchdown. One breakdown in basketball means 2 points, of which we should not be giving up. Anyway.
Well, I'm curious to see where it goes from here.
Yeah.
You've set the bar quite high at the start of this season.
52-14 is quite high. We were talking how we could have, if we would have shot well. They're a little tight at the beginning. We could have possibly gone to 70 points.
How long are these games again? 24 minutes?
No, they're 32 minutes.
32 minutes, okay.
Yeah, it's 4 8-minute quarters.
Okay. Well.
Anyway.
Maybe if the season goes well enough, we'll to go along with the football triumph, we'll have to play "We Are the Champions" as is the music.
There is no playoffs. They do not keep score, but we do.
The football league, they keep score, but not in the basketball league.
We got a text from a parent the day after being like, "I'm just still so excited about how well everybody played the day before. They shared the ball," and I'm like, people are basking in the glory of these victories that we had.
Do you think this is the start of a coaching career for you, that you could somehow move up?
I looked at, like, you look at like NFL coaches, and it's like I was looking at Tom Allen. It was like Tom Allen started as like a high school position coach or something, and then you just kind of like slowly work your way up. And I'm like, City of Renton basketball.
Well, wait until you find out about one of the people the Seahawks are interviewing for OC. He did not work his way up from youth basketball, suffice it to say.
Is it a person we've talked about or somebody else?
No, somebody that just got mentioned as an interview today.
Okay. I don't even know. I haven't seen those.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, Coach's Corner in the books. Do we have your favorite segment this week?
No.
Okay. Well, what we do have is Transact.
Hello.
The Mariners on a 2-day Transact streak. And it included bringing an Italian back to the Seattle Mariners. So very exciting stuff. On Monday, they signed 37-year-old infielder Donovan Solano to a reported 1-year, $3.5 million contract. Solano has had an incredibly unusual career path. He had a career-high 1.7 WAR for the Twins in 2023 and hit a career-high 8 home runs last year at age 836 for the Padres in a season he started on a minor league contract. This is after he was below replacement in his 20s, primarily with the Marlins, then spent 2 full seasons in the minors and returned as an extremely high-average hitter. Since 2019, he's hit .294 with a .353 on-base percentage and a .413 slugging percentage. Like, at some point, you have to figure Father Time is going to come knocking, but hopefully not this season for the Mariners, in which case, if he repeats what he did last year for the Padres and certainly what he did 2 years ago for the Twins, it's a screaming bargain for them to get him at this value, something that they obviously, because of their cheapness, desperately need. Solano played almost exclusively at the corners with the Padres, also played some second base in Minnesota, so maybe an option there. But I think mostly the idea here is, you put him into the mix there and keep doing more primarily at second base, pending what their kind of final move is to add it back to the major league roster. We'll see. There's a lot of directions they could go.
And we also, I mean, not that we can't find them, but we may not know who the player is right now, between free agents or, just call ups. Like, it was the thing that Jose Caballero, right, a couple of years ago wasn't on our radar and then became basically an everyday starter at some point. So at least a generally valuable asset for the team. So we might not know at that point, or at this point. Do we feel like Solano is an upgrade over Josh Rojas? If you're assuming that's trading out one third baseman who's probably around replacement level, maybe slightly above replacement level for another one is Donovan Solano. Should we expect him to be a better option than Josh Rojas?
I don't know. I mean, offensively, yes, I would say, despite the fact that, I mean, it's interesting because Solano had identical WAR to Rojas last year. F WAR, this is. Previously, I cited B WAR uh, to Rojas, but Rojas played much more with the Mariners than Solano did for the Padres. So, on like a per at bat basis, Solano was more effective, I would
I also
say.
kind of felt like Rojas is sometimes you look at the WAR and you're like, this isn't quite right. Like I know that statistically it is, but it just feels a little bit more. There's like a JP Crawford season like that, I think, where it's kind of like he wasn't actually this good. And I kind of felt that way about Rojas started well, but then it was a pretty brutal second half of the season.
So the WRC plus for him, like if you're isolating his offense, has been considerably better, I would say, than Rojas is. Now Fangraphs WAR, I should also note, their projections have Rojas as being more valuable than Solano in 2025, based presumably
Significantly
primarily on
younger.
their age. Yeah. Uh, and so we'll see, I guess is the answer on this.
There's both the window of possibilities that Solano has a pretty good year. He probably there's almost no chance that he's an all-star. That's almost out of the question.
Yeah, I would say that'd be pretty shocking.
There's a chance that he has a pretty good year for Donovan Solano. And there's also a chance he's not on the Mariners in a handful of months.
Oh, without question. I mean, it's like one of the fascinating things about this. What I was going to say is that he and Rojas signed identical contracts. They're both 1 year, $3.5 million deals. That's what Rojas signed with the White Sox. Uh, it's kind of fascinating that like Solano played as well as he did in 2023 and then could only get a minor league contract and started the year in the minors for the Padres before then basically being in the major leagues the bulk of the season. So strange that there was not a belief in him whatsoever coming off of that. I guess just again age related, but hopefully the Mariners are right about this one.
Sure. It's Transact. I saw a stat which was something like weighted runs created or offense, defense, bullpen, or starting pitching, hitting, starting pitching, bullpen, defense. And the Mariners were something like third starting pitching, 10th offense, 15th bullpen, something like that, maybe even a little bit lower, and around the same place defense. And I thought to myself, this is a good team. If you just take those numbers on their own for the 2024 Mariners, as they are, you probably take that almost every single season. And I wonder how much of the Mariners' problems in 2025 that we're trying to fix are just going to be basically taken care of by bullpen regression. The bullpen probably was worse than they're going to be in the future. The Mariners have generally had very good bullpens. I don't know why they weren't as good in 2024, but if that handful of games that the bullpen lost because for being an average bullpen or maybe a slightly below average bullpen is flipping Josh Rojas for Donovan Solano, I don't know if it matters either way. They probably just should have kept Rojas if it's the exact same dollar amount, but maybe Solano's a slightly better hitter. I don't know. Is a lateral move there at third base, given everything else, just fine? Because this roster actually is constructed in a pretty good place. I have so many complicated feelings about the Mariners right now, which let's talk about the other signing, and then let's talk about the non-signing.
We have no complicated feelings about this one, just excitement. As they sent cash to the Cubs for infield utility man.
They sent what?
Yes, the Mariners have it apparently. They can't spend it to sign the players, but they can spend it to acquire them as long as they come with that sweet team control. Miles Mastrobuoni, who had previously been designated for assignment, he played for Italia in the 2023 World Baseball Classic alongside Matt Festa, who then took his spot on the 40-man roster in Chicago. The Cubs signed him or last week and designated Mastrobuoni for assignment, which is why he was available. He debuted with the Rays in 2022, played a handful of games, and has played parts of the last two seasons with the Cubs. Hit 241 in 2023, went 13 of 14 in base stealing opportunities, dropped to a 194 average last season. Curiously, had just 2 stolen bases. Played all
Dan Wilson's gonna fix that.
Oh yeah, played all 3 non-first base infield spots, both corner outfield spots. He's got 1 remaining option year. So
love to see it.
This is the new Sam Haggerty.
Oh, nothing could replace Sam Haggerty,
obviously,
but it's a very similar skill set overall. And as long as, if you have a player with the skill set, as long as they're Italian, that's fine.
If they're Dylan Moore, like, ooh, not sure about that.
I've always just for some reason been like, I don't know why, but I do not like Dylan Moore. Literally forever. And I think we have pinpointed why.
Yes, I don't think we needed to think that hard about it. He was always competing with the guy. He's also a lefty, which is notable because a lot of the guys that they've added,
has Haggerty signed anywhere? He's just out there, right?
I mean, he's still rehabbing.
Okay.
Because I think that was late May or early June that he suffered the Achilles rupture. Like, I don't know if he'll be ready for the start of spring training. So I think more likely he tries to sign a minor league contract mid-season and maybe make a comeback.
Bring him back.
So hopefully that's with the
start
Mariners.
of spring training. Me.
This guy, wow.
Oh yeah. Can you?
Because you're excited about baseball?
Oh yeah, you're not excited about baseball?
I don't know if I'm excited about baseball per se.
Oh man, I can't freaking wait. I'm like, we got to get this hitting net set up in our garage.
All right, that's fair. Pitchers and catchers report February 12th. The first full squad workout is February 18th for the Mariners. And then we'll not, as you were alluding to, include Roki Sasaki. Shocking.
What?
What was the website we found with the odds again? I'm gonna go back in the archives and look that up. Apparently they were on it.
They actually had the Blue Jays, right? Like they had the Blue Jays relatively high, didn't they?
I'll have to say here. Phil here with discussion about how you don't have to like Ichiro anymore.
Well, that's a given. I considered all sorts of different angles for this, right?
That was bookies.com. Unfortunately, it has been updated, so I can't tell you what it was at the time unless it's on archive.org.
Yeah, we need the Wayback Machine.
Although the author here is based in Toronto, so maybe it was, and maybe the Blue Jays were high on there all along.
Oh, interesting. I think bookies.com was a little bit off the trail.
But Mariners fans, the Seattle Times was more off the trail.
I mean, the Seattle Times that's wish casting at that point. Well, so of course, I was thinking about a perspective of how Ichiro's entire tenure in Seattle, all offense to your childhood memories or whatever. It was a complete waste, and it led to nothing. But especially not some playoff wins, I guess. A series, right?
2 series.
2 series. Oh
no, 1 series.
Yeah, no, they only won series. Well, congrats. Yeah. That's so nice. But ultimately, this is a failure of not Jerry DiPoto, not the city of Seattle. It is squarely on John Stanton.
Well, not Ichiro. We're going to put it on Ichiro? Oh, that's disappointing.
I'm being real about this. This is a John Stanton failure. Like, the Mariners had an inside track for players like Roki Sasaki a couple of decades ago, right around the time that John Stanton took over the team, ownership of the team. And by not investing in the team over these last, like San Diego being on this list, if you would have told us that in the early 2000s, that I honestly don't believe that there's a chance that he signs in Toronto, but San Diego being a legit competitor for Roki Sasaki is because of ownership. That is it. It's not that the city is better. It's not that there's a better connection to Japan or anything like that. It is an ownership who has shown consistently that they're investing in trying to win baseball games. And I was thinking about this with regards to Jerry DiPoto, where I think Jerry DiPoto has despite being an asshole in that interview, I think Jerry DiPoto has a harder job than we probably give him credit for, because he has to be the mouthpiece of a much bigger asshole. And that's the person who is not spending the money to try to win in the city of Seattle. All the words that he's saying are basically John Stanton's words, right? Talking about the market. That's John Stanton saying, we're in this kind of market. I can't spend like this. San Diego is a smaller market than Seattle, and they are figuring out a way to make it work. Seattle has lost, aside from, honestly, maybe the impressive work that Jerry Dipoto has done with this roster as it is constructed currently. There's no other reason to want to sign here, because why would you sign up for, and especially if you're making apples to apples money? I think the Mariners were able to offer maybe $2 million more than somebody else, but for Roki Sasaki, that's not a big deal, right? There's much bigger money coming. If you're looking at apples to apples money with most of these organizations, why would you go to the organization that has, I guess you could call it a playoff series win since 2001? Why would that be the choice that you make along the way? There's no reason. And if I was Roki Sasaki's agent, anything,
pitching
I'd
development,
like,
I suppose.
I mean, sure, right? But players want to play in big games. Players want to play in the playoffs when they do this. Like the pitch. If you're Roki Sasaki, you're like, I'm pretty fucking good. I don't think Roki Sasaki is that concerned with his own pitching development at this point. He wants to play in big games. And the Mariners have proven that they are not willing to spend to play in big games. And it's because of John Stanton. That's it. Period. There's nothing else. The Mariners had inside track on it and they lost it. And there's one person to blame. It's nobody else. The fans are there. Jerry Dipoto is fucking trying his hardest. All of these people are trying. They may make the playoffs next year. I think they likely will make the playoffs next year. But that still doesn't change things for how it looks. Because I see something like the Nationals when they had Juan Soto and Bryce Harper when they were young, plus all those additional stars, and then they just drifted off to other teams. That would be the Mariners. They managed to tie up Julio for a long time. Beyond that, I do not know if the Mariners are going to be willing to spend at that same level to have a roster that can compete.
Yeah, I think the most optimistic you can be is they are still managing this with an eye towards Julio's prime and will be willing to spend more when that happens. If Julio takes a leap, I think that's probably naively optimistic at this point.
They have never shown, this ownership group has not shown.
I will say this ownership group spent considerably more in the Nelson Cruz era. Like their payroll was relatively higher back then.
Was Stanton the owner when they signed Cano, or is that pre-Stanton?
That's not something I'm going to remember off the top of my head. I would say it was pre-Stanton, but the exact timeline I have to look up. Because they signed Cano in 2013, correct?
Whatever day Chris Peterson was hired.
Which was 2013, yes. Mariners, yeah, he became the CEO in April 2016. So he inherited that contract.
When have they spent since then?
I mean, I would say that the 2016, 17, 18 teams, I think, did have pretty high payroll.
Inherited. He just got the team and then...
But you could... I don't know if you're aware of this. You don't have to keep the payroll you inherit.
But it's not necessarily that easy. If the payroll has shrunk over time in the John Stanton era, there's nothing to suggest that it would go up at any other time.
Well, I mean, I think it shrunk in 2019 through 2000. Like, understandably, they went into a rebuild. You're not going to spend as much money. It's just that it hasn't gone up as quickly as you would have expected it would. And I think, obviously, the albatross that is Root Sports is a factor in that. But, again, John Stanton can afford to lose some money, and you gotta spend money to make money, particularly if you're trying to get blown playoff games, which I think tend to be valuable to ownership.
$1.1 billion of net worth. I'm sorry, but just how many billions of dollars do you need? What is the point? I never understand.
Billions of dollars. How many hundreds of millions of dollars would be a fairer question?
I never understand the point. Again, I'm not a billionaire, as you can understand. I don't understand the thought process of billionaires. I don't think billionaires should exist, obviously. But the idea that you need more money instead of doing a thing that would be fun and get you social accolades, I don't get why you wouldn't do that. What would be the logic?
Like,
Steve
what
Ballmer,
can you get with your money that would be better than the reward of winning?
Yeah, I literally, like, what is it? He's not saving for something, right?
The Seahawks. Yeah, I
That
don't know.
motherfucker better stay away from the Seahawks. He's not.
No, 1 billion
He
is
just
not getting you in the
does not have
conversation about the
Seahawks money
Seahawks.
anyway. But like the I I just don't understand. If you have $1 billion, spend in the hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not like the profits are zero. Profits are good in this situation. Who cares about root sports? $1 billion. Spend that money to do something fun for the shit that you do every day.
Well, the revenues are not zero. The profits would be negative in what you're outlining.
Yeah, but it's not like, again, the amount that it actually would be felt if you're a billionaire on your life is zero. It is 0%.
I agree.
Just like do the thing that would make the people around you happy and have fun.
And allow us to stop having this conversation.
Well, at least they transacted a little bit. Thank God.
We needed it. We needed it bad.
Yeah. People were having some Joker arcs before the transacting happened.
And look, Jerry DiPoto was surely just like chafing and not having an Italian on the roster. So problem solved there. I don't know if I mentioned that Mastrobuoni has one remaining option year. So I think he probably is most likely to start the year in the minor leagues, but we'll see how things shake out. All right, to the roundup. Seattle Kraken actually some positive moments on this road trip. Maybe not so good for the lottery odds if you look at it that way. I got a 6-2 win Saturday in Buffalo, jumped all over the Sabres in that one. Then after losing 6-2 to the Red Wings on the back end of a back-to-back, got back on the winning side of things. Tuesday in Pittsburgh beat the Penguins 4-2. They'll wrap up this road trip on Thursday in Winnipeg before coming back home, host the LA Kings on Saturday night, and then their traditional MLK Day matinee against those same Sabres once again next week. Seattle Sounders began training for the 2025 season on Monday with Paul Arriola in the mix after officially completing a second deal with FC Dallas to get the winger, having previously added his teammate Jesus Ferreira. They sent a 2026 first-round pick as well as up to $300K in conditional 2026 general allocation money for Arriola, who brings a lot of versatility to the attack with the ability to play fullback, wingback, or slide inside at times. Peaked with 10 goals and 5 assists in MLS regular season play in 2022, had 5 goals and 2 assists last year. Arriola started his career in Liga MX and also has experience in the championship, so certainly that international experience can be useful for the Sounders as they look ahead to the schedule this season. And Arriola has 10 goals and 50 caps for the USMNT.
All right.
So really one of the more accomplished national team players the Sounders have had in a while. Seattle Reign start their preseason training on Wednesday. They will do so without several unsigned free agents they indicated last week would not return, including midfielder Quinn and midfielders Quinn and Nicky Stanton. Quinn had spent the past 4 seasons with the Reign primarily as a starter, while Stanton had been a reserve over the past 3 seasons. Ziara King, also part of that group, had previously shared on social media she won't be back. One player who will be back, the Reign did re-sign Lauren Barnes, one of 2 remaining OGs alongside Jeff Fishlock for a 13th season in Seattle. Barnes enters the year as the NWSL's all-time leader in caps, starts, and minutes. So the Sue Bird of the NWSL, if you will. A little bit of Storm news. I broke this on Tuesday. The Storm tendering a core qualifying offer to Gabby Williams, so that guarantees her the ability to sign a 1-year deal at the WNBA Supermax of $249,000+. Takes her out of unrestricted free agency, although teams can allow core players to meet with other teams if they so choose, and means if she changes teams that it would need to be via trade. This is most notable because there was a lot of reporting last summer when Gabby Williams was choosing her team after the Olympics that she did not want to be cored at that point. So, kind of a change there. We reported that this was done in consultation with her management. Gabby Williams knew this was coming, did not come as a surprise to her. And I think one of the things to remember about this is the issue that specifically was raised about the core designation as it related to Gabby Williams was this idea that, if she had signed with another team, played like a month there, and then they had been able to core her and take her out of free agency. It's a very different situation with the Seattle team that she has re-signed with each of the last two off seasons. And when she came back to Seattle last summer, she was asked about this and talked about her trust with the Storm ownership in front office and, kind of the open dialogue back and forth between those two sides.
So is there a certain amount, is the goal to move toward a long-term deal for Gabby
No,
Williams?
because there's not going to be long-term deals this year. The
At
goal is
some
to
point
keep her
after this year, though, is what I'm saying.
Oh yeah. I think in 2026 you'd love to sign her to a long-term deal.
Okay,
And
so it's
I think
basically just running it through 1 year. She'll play on this core designation, sign a long-term deal in 2026.
Could be cored again in 2026, potentially
What would be so is there a max amount of times that you can be cored?
twice. Although actually it probably will not make sense to core her in 2026 because so part of the reason this makes sense now is this market is really limited on terms of wings. And that's obviously even with Jordan Horst in a position of need for the Storm because they're going to trade Jewel Lloyd. And in the mock off season that we did, I was able to re-sign Gabby Williams at slightly more between the regular max and the super
The
max.
WNBA mock off season has to be on the Peltoncast bingo card. You love talking about the mock off season.
I don't think it happens enough to be, but during this handful of weeks, it's very important to reference.
Very important to reference.
Well, it's like our way to understand the market. So one of the things I quickly read as GM of the Dallas Wings and the Storm was like, there's going to be a lot of competition for wings. So I ended up as the Wings, no pun intended here, offering former Storm forward Alicia Clark, the Supermax, to come to Dallas at age, I believe, 37 or 38. So you can see relative to that how much more valuable the Gabby Williams, probably the best 3-and-D role player on the market, or at least an unrestricted free agency.
And that's a 1 year supermax that the Wings would have offered. And that everything is a 1 year deal.
Everything's a 1 year. I mean, teams would love to sign 2 years deals if players would do it because the contract is probably going to at least double. So
the salary cap is going to double, and the supermax contract is going to double.
Yeah, what is now the supermax will be closer to the veteran minimum in 2026.
I mean, that's awesome for the players.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, again, the biggest contract in the league is a little less than 250,000, so it's long overdue. So
what is the new? Do we know yet what the new basically max salary is going to be?
No, because the CBA is getting negotiated in addition to all this new TV money coming in. So everything is subject to negotiation with Neko Gumake, the Storm's remaining key unrestricted free agent at the center of all of this is the president of the Players Association.
There we go. Would this have happened irrelevant of Caitlin Clark?
Yes, but definitely it has been accelerated by Caitlin Clark.
It's kind of incredible how one player can kind of change the entire course of. I was like doing the New York Times crossword, and there's Caitlin Clark. You wouldn't know anything about it, of course.
But people in the Discord would, and you don't know about the people in the Discord. Actually, I'm not sure what channel.
I have seen people talk about it. That is the diagram that I fall into that you don't.
That is correct. If we start talking about Wordle on there, sign me up. My streak is like 60 days right now. That's pretty solid.
Bullshit.
I have a Wordle t-shirt.
I don't have an argument for why, but it is.
I got a Wordle t-shirt for Christmas. Wait till you see me sport that.
Oh God.
So no, the one thing about the Storm, if they do, so Gabby Williams doesn't have to take the Supermax. She can take less. We've seen lots of players do that. But if she does take the Supermax, and if, say, the Storm were to trade Jewel Lloyd for Kelsey Plum, I mean, we'll see what happens there. And Kelsey Plum were to take the Supermax, is the Aces core player, because she's also gotten that designation, or Satu Sabali, same thing would apply there. Then the math does get kind of tight on the salary cap for the Storm. They basically could not offer Nneka Ogwumike the full max. She didn't, I don't think, take quite the full max last year, but pretty close. And then would have just minimum salaries to fill out the bench. So that will be interesting to see how that all works out. But obviously lots more moving parts. Jewel Lloyd did meet with media last Friday ahead of the start of the unrivaled 3-on-3 season this weekend and declined to address her future, although notably she did refer to her time in Seattle in the past tense when she was asked about it. So
I don't think she's coming back.
I don't think so either.
Do we care about the unrivaled 3-on-3?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know how much bandwidth, we'll have to follow it. during the middle of NBA and college basketball season. But
are there teams in certain cities?
No, they're all playing in a single location in Miami. So this is where WNBA free agency is going to happen because basically all the free agents are there, which is interesting.
I'm not sure it'll work, but
these games will be on the Turner family of networks starting this weekend.
I mean, it might be because Caitlin Clark's playing in it, right?
No, she's not playing this year.
Oh yeah, no. I'm skeptical about this. It's not, and I understand they just can't compete with the WNBA, but
are not trying to compete with the WNBA. They're trying to complement it.
Sports are so provincial, right? We have an entire podcast based upon the city is the thing, right? The city is here first. And
you're rooting for laundry, yes.
And ultimately, like that's we're rooting for the city of Seattle, and the country of Italy. As it stands. But I think that's what, like,
and sometimes the country of the United States, depending on a complex relationship.
Rarely. But I think that's the thing that's like watching good players do a thing is always exciting, but not having the inherent built-in rooting interest. Yes, there are going to be Storm players that will cheer for maybe more than others, but the inherent rooting interest of this is a team. It's like when you go to a Blazers game, right? And like my children aren't Blazers fans, but they kind of know the job, going in. They're like, this is what we are cheering for. And I feel like a lot of people being at the Blazers game, where I was looking around, I was like, these people don't care about the Blazers for most of the other games. It's about you kind of just like go in and participate in a thing that you understand the assignment for, which is we're cheering for the Blazers tonight. Does that make sense?
I suppose so.
But if you're going to an unrivaled 3-on-3 tournament, you're like, I'm watching the sport of basketball.
I don't think in-person attendance is like their primary driver of revenue. I don't think that's the plan. But
I agree. But like, were TV ratings good on bubble games in the NBA? They probably were because there's nothing else to watch.
I mean, they were, yes. I don't know if that's quite the comparison here.
I still think without having the like built-in, this is the team that we're cheering for. In the same way that like the various like XFL leagues that pop up, and I'm like, well, if there's a Seattle team, I guess I'm cheering for that team. Right. I suppose that's my rooting interest, even if it's not a thing that I care about otherwise. It's like you could jump in, or various Husky sports where like, oh, I've not paid any attention to this all year, but in the background, I know that they're happening, and I hope that UW is winning those things.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
And Oregon is losing that.
Yes. But if it's happening without the like under the umbrella of Seattle or the university or something like that, I'm like, I'm aware that there are people playing Ultimate Frisbee, but if it's not affiliated with the University of Washington, I don't care at all who wins.
So since the only expected member of the 2025 Storm roster in Unrivaled is Skylar Diggins-Smith, presumably we are therefore lifelong Lunar Owls fans. Because that's the team that she is on, along with Nafisa Collier, Natasha Cloud, Alicia Gray, and Shakira Austin. And maybe Sabrini.
I like the name. Lunar Owls.
You gotta respect the name, yeah.
Fuck it, lifelong Lunar Owl fans.
There you go. All right, women's basketball. So it's 3-game Big Ten winning streak snapped Sunday at Michigan State, losing 80-68. Final score looked a little worse than it really was. Huskies were within 7 most of the fourth quarter before the Spartans pulled away at the foul line late. Savia Sellers scored 21 and El Ladin had 17, but the front court struggled against Michigan State's size, combining for just 6 points. After that loss, Huskies now the last team in on Charlie Crean's bracketology at ESPN.com, hypothetically ticketed for a first 4 matchup against old foe Stanford, which would be kind of fun. On Wednesday, they complete this road trip at Michigan. Wolverines started 9-1 with their only loss in that span to South Carolina, then lost 4 out of 5 against a brutal schedule. Oklahoma on a neutral site at USC and UCLA, and home against Ohio State, all of those in the top 12 of the Bart Torvik rankings. They bounced back Saturday to host to hand Purdue a 27-point loss and move up 7 spots in the Torvik rankings to number 17. Top 2 players for Michigan, both freshmen, guard Silas Swords, a top 5 recruit, and top 20 recruit Olivia Olson at forward.
All right.
On Saturday, Huskies back home to host Purdue as they will honor Kelsey Plum by retiring her jersey. I'll be there covering this one for ESPN. Very excited to get out to it.
When was the last UW women's game you went to?
Well, I did not make it out to a UW women's game last year, but 2 years ago, I attended about 5 minutes or about 2 minutes of the UW Stanford game before Kyrie Irving got traded. And I had to immediately drive home and miss their upset of the Cardinal in that one, which was crushing. I did also see UW UCLA that one, which I think they lost. Our old friend Katie Geralds leads the Boilermakers to Seattle on Saturday, returning to where she played 3 seasons for the Storm as a first-round pick in 2007.
I remember Katie Geralds. That's pretty interesting. Yeah,
she's in my sweet spot of covering the team. This is Gerald's 4th year at her alma mater, shaping up as the toughest. A brutal non-conference schedule saw losses by at least 30 points to South Carolina, Notre Dame, and Kentucky. 3 teams likely to be in the top 16 overall in the country, have yet to beat a top 100 opponent, and are 0-5 against an impossible Big Ten schedule thus far, where the easiest game was either at Iowa or hosting Maryland. So the Kelsey Blum jersey retirement scheduling for this game is a little bit like scheduling the homecoming game, I think, for the UW women's basketball. This is one they should win for sure. So it'll be very exciting to see it. Looking forward to it.
Should we expect a 2-0 weekend then, or?
No, I mean, Wednesday would be an upset for sure. Again, they're number 17 in Bartorvik, and this is in Ann Arbor.
Okay, so that'd be a surprising victory. Basically, the expectation is to go 1-1, and if they go 2-0, it'd be huge as far as the tournament goes.
Yes, that would definitely get them comfortably in the tournament field if they beat Michigan, I think. Men's basketball. Our friends at the Seattle Times had a story last week asking about how they could get to the NCAA tournament. To which I responded, the real question is, can the Huskies be among the 14 teams out of the 18 invited to the Big Ten tournament?
You're like, you meant the Big Ten tournament, right?
And that one's not looking real likely after a reality check in the state of Michigan. Several people faced a reality check in the state of Michigan in the past several months, but the Huskies are among them. An 88-54 loss Thursday at Michigan State.
Wait, before you said that, there needs to be a Jim Mora, like the playoffs tournament.
Yes.
You're talking about the tournament? I'm trying to win a game. That's Seattle Times. Come on. That's like a thought that passes through your head and you want to see it drift out the other side.
As quickly as possible.
Even for the engagement. Come on, Seattle Times.
Maybe they meant the women's team.
I think I got confused. Maybe they actually meant the Big Ten tournament.
So everybody was very excited coming off that 1-1 and competitive loss to Illinois at home. First weekend of Big Ten play, and then the Huskies take their first real Big Ten trip to the Midwest, and they went more than 10 minutes in East Lansing without a field goal. We're down 16-1 and 29-8. Were you watching this?
For a while I was. At some point I was just like, I had it on. I think I was watching this one on the TV actually, and I had it set up. Or no, I was on the treadmill. And I had the football game on. It's a great college football playoff weekend, by the way. Your lack of interest in college football playoff is just wrong. But I had that on, and then I also had the Michigan State game on. And at some point, I just slowly closed the laptop, and I was like, "That I am good." This is bringing more pain than it is bringing joy. It was the same on Sunday, where it's like I was flipping between that and the NFL game, and I was like, I'm just going to stay on this other one for a little while longer.
Just for a mental health situation. Yeah, I gave it till halftime. Margin was 30 by early in the second half. Huskies shot 3 of 16 from 3, under 40% on twos, while the Spartans shot 62.5% inside the arc. Tyler Harris, the only UW player in double figures. Great Osibor missed all 8 shots from the field. A tough one for him.
Not so great Osibor in that one.
Better Osibor on Sunday. The Huskies were more competitive. They were at Michigan. They were down just 29-26 at one point before the Wolverines opened up a double-digit halftime lead, and the Huskies never got any closer than that in a 91-75 loss. Wolverines shot 69% on twos, made 11 threes. This was the first time we really saw the Danny Sprinkle defense, I think, get broken, I would say.
Oh, I mean, the 1-3-1 that they went to, and they called it out on the broadcast. But who was the Big Ten player who they had on there?
I cannot remember off the top of my head who was doing that game.
I mean, they
Because
called it out
it was
right away.
LaFonso Ellis on Wednesday. That was fun.
And I don't think I was listening to the sound as much on Wednesday, but they called out the 1-3-1, and they were basically just like, "What are they doing right now?" In Michigan, it was like, "Bang, wide open shot, bang, wide open shot." Right?
As I said on the Discord, dating back to Craig Robinson is where I first really remember seeing a lot of 1-3-1. I have never been a believer. I've never understood it, and I continue to not understand it.
I get that they were trying to stay out of foul trouble, and that was kind of the logic. Why they went to it, and maybe they only have the 1-3-1, I don't know.
I think that's what they've primarily played, at least recently.
But it's just against a team like Michigan. I was kind of thinking about it like after they got summarily just demolished by Michigan State. Pulled up Ken Palm on Sunday to see. I was like, Michigan can't be better. And I was like, what? Where are the bad teams?
Oh, well, just wait till we get to previewing this one.
Every game is like playing Alabama.
Every game is like playing Arizona, I guess.
There are no, but this is really true for the Big Ten, which is all of these teams can score at the rim. Literally every Big Ten game that UW has played so far this year, aside from the weird December ones, which I'm not really counting, every real Big Ten game.
I mean, yes, what was it, Oregon and USC?
I thought it was USC was the one that they shouldn't have lost. I don't think they played Oregon.
Oh, it was UCLA and USC. Yeah.
But these teams can all finish at the rim. All the 4 real Big Ten teams that they've played so far can finish at the rim and can shoot and can play defense. It's just like they are all so much more complete teams than UW is. And if UW is able to take, and again, like Illinois, what they did, they took away threes and it was like, bang, they were right at the rim. And the Michigan game, they played offense pretty well in the first half. Some of it, whenever UW is doing things right, and maybe this is just being too close to it, you're like, this isn't going to last. It's always smoke and mirrors for UW.
I think that's a correct approach. That's wisdom right there.
But sometimes, like Illinois continued. For Maryland, I just kept waiting for Maryland to just take over the game, and they didn't. So understand being at home versus on the road changes those things. Michigan and Michigan State are just better, though.
Of the top 26 teams in the country in offensive rating, 8 are in the Big Ten.
Is it those 4? Or Maryland might not be, but
no,
Illinois,
Maryland is. Yeah,
Maryland is also.
Maryland's 26, Illinois is 20th, Michigan State's 25th, Michigan's 14th.
I mean, that Michigan offense, the way that they were able to hit shots and
those teams are also
basket, draw fouls,
all in the top 25 in adjusted defensive efficiency. Oh, I guess, yeah, I guess, that's right. Yeah,
they're just good teams. They're just good basketball teams, and UW isn't. And they're playing on the road across the country. They talked about time zones, and I was like, the time zone is not. These are all normal times for these games, right? The game that they played on Wednesday or Thursday against Michigan State wasn't in a strange time for them. They play that time all the time.
Correct.
So Michigan State just blew the doors off them because they're way better. That's it. There's no other excuse. Danny Sprinkle was like, we're doing 2 a day. It's like, you can have practice all you want. The team isn't good enough. You could have 1,000 a days. Danny Sprinkle, the team is not going to be better than Michigan State and Michigan. That's it, period. Go recruit. Like, that's all that can be done.
He knows that. And
yes.
But, you're just trying to be competitive. Well, I guess actually technically Purdue is not better than Michigan and Ken Palm. They are 12th and Michigan is 11th.
The Michigan team, Michigan State, I looked better against UW. I feel like I blame UW more for that one. And I
agree.
Michigan looked like probably a better team. It's fun though. Like, it's fun seeing these teams because, again, I would never see these teams play, right? And now I'm looking at the NCAA tournament. I'm just like, how are teams gonna beat these fucking teams, right? Like, I know that it's probably, and the Big 12 is very good also, and there's good ACC teams, but just like
SEC
that Michigan team,
like,
that Michigan team is going to be a hard out in the NCAA tournament.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, their coach made the Final Four at Florida Atlantic.
So, they're all very intense. All of these Big Ten coaches too. Everyone is like the most intense dude.
The SEC is the top. I don't know if I feel like Dusty May is that intense. The SEC is the top rated conference on Ken Palm. Big 10, then Big 12, and then a pretty sizable drop after that to the Big East. It's a real down year for the ACC. Aside from Duke, of course.
Well, yeah, the ACC doesn't care about basketball anymore. They're a football conference now.
So Huskies back home Wednesday to continue this gauntlet against Purdue. Since I incorrectly boldly predicted the Boilermakers would be the Huskies' first
You
Big
were
Ten
so
win,
close. So close.
they've ripped off 4 straight conference wins by a minimum of 18 points each and moved
Well,
up,
yeah,
I think,
'cause
about 12, 11
the
spots in Ken Palm.
the thing that you would need for the bold prediction to be right, even if UW had not beaten Maryland, was them
Correct.
beating Purdue, which I would
At
not
that point,
count
I
on.
thought there was a better chance of them beating, assessed that there was a better chance. I mean, I knew they were going to lose the 2 games in Michigan.
Yeah,
Solid on that one, and we're going to lose to Illinois. I thought there was a better chance of them beating Purdue than Maryland, and that turned out not to be the case.
but we don't know.
Uh,
Like,
they also beat Maryland by 5. I mean, we do know that they're just
we
like
know that
currently a
Purdue is
better
a better
team,
team than Maryland.
right? Also beat Maryland by 5 back in December as part of a 5-1 Big Ten start. So they still have 3 starters from last year's team that lost in the national championship game to UConn, but obviously a wildly different offense with the departure of Zach Edey. It's weird because for a long time, even before Edey, Purdue always had like some 7'3" plus guy on their roster. It was a very consistent thing. This year they've gone back to the other model, which is where they have an undersized but effective big man, and that's a 6'9" Trey Kaufman-Renn who played at times alongside Edey and backed him up last year. He's their anchor in the post. He's shooting 62% on twos.
How
Junior
tall is undersized for him though?
6'9", so he's still
Okay,
bigger than Great Osibor, but this is not like the Huskies are going to be giving up a lot of size like they were against Michigan and their 2 7-footers.
that was
That was mean. Junior guard Braden Smith has pushed his usage from 22% to 26%, still shooting 42% on threes to remain efficient. And Fletcher Lawyer is shooting 46% beyond the arc. Purdue top 10 in 3-point percentage in the country, also third nationally in assist rate. An interesting matchup against a UW defense that allows relatively few assists. That's something I like about what the Huskies are doing defensively under Danny Sprinkle. So, still not a game they're real likely to win. And then Danny Sprinkle gets to run 2 days to his heart's content because the Huskies will have 5 days off after this game.
they might need those 5 days off. There
A
are some
rare,
easier Big Ten games coming.
eventually. In February, yes, there will be
Oh
some
God,
easier games. I
wait,
mean,
who's next
UCLA,
after Purdue?
well, Oregon.
Oh, that's an easy one.
I mean, they've only got 2 more games in January after Purdue. So there's going to be a lot of practice time coming up. The
It's the
schedule
team
is
from down south, and then
than UCLA, who they only lost to by 11 on the road. So you never know.
yeah, I know.
Yeah. UW football.
Seattle Times, how they make the tournament.
UW football news. Dogman.com first on Tuesday to confirm online reports that former Texas wide receiver Jonte Cook II, a highlight of the Huskies transfer editions, no longer part of the program. This definitely leaves the Huskies pretty thin at receiver in terms of experience. Denzel Boston is their only receiver now on the roster for 2025 with more than 11 career receptions, and just 2 others, Kevin Green Jr., the Arizona transfer who missed last year due to injury, and then freshman Rashid Williams, or 2024 freshman Rashid Williams, with more
Also
than
an
2
Arizona
catches.
transfer, right?
I guess, yes, technically.
Uh,
They have added 5 freshman receivers, so there's a lot of talent here, but not a lot of experience.
It'll be interesting to see if there's another receiver out there. I'm fascinated how this works NIL wise. I just the whole thing is so backdoor where I'm like, if Jonte Cook was promised an amount of money, is that contingent upon him playing for the team? Like, when is this money delivered? Like, how does this work? And does that free up money for UW to then go take for other players? Because the transfer portal, there's a couple of different windows. There's going to be another transfer portal window of players.
Correct, after
later.
spring practice.
So I don't think UW is going to add another receiver this offseason, right?
Without question.
And it'll be fascinating to see what it is. It's disappointing that it didn't work out with Jonte Cook. I did feel like after I was excited about Jonte Cook, obviously, and there were other teams that were in the mix. This wasn't. I don't think this was Jedd Fisch making a bad decision. There's something about once a person gets in the building, you understand who they are better. And
I mean, I think it's possible that Jedd Fisch did make a bad decision, but it was not like they were out on a limb in making that bad decision. Other teams were pursuing Jonte Cook as well. Yes.
Other teams were also trying to make a bad decision. And who knows? I mean, honestly, the hope is that Jonte Cook is able to, as a human being, figure things out and play football somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't have any ill will toward Jonte Cook because of the situation, but he's clearly got some shit to figure out. If within the first couple of weeks of being in the program, he was dismissed from the team. So
Yes.
obviously a talented player who just has to figure some shit out. And there's a clear reason that it didn't work out at Texas. There's a couple of different types of transfers as well. There are some transfers who are looking for playing time. Will Rogers to me was such an exemplary transfer overall, right? He was able to be the starter, and when he was supplanted as a starter, was so supportive of Damon Williams. Will Rogers is somebody I have no idea what he'll do next after this. He'll probably play football somewhere, maybe.
Well, he's
But
talked about going into coaching.
that's what I was going to
his
say.
plan.
If he's not, I'd love him as a grad transfer or as a grad assistant at Utah.
If they can chin up some more eligibility and keep him as a backup, as a grad transfer staying at UW. Yeah, no. Christian Capel of On Montlake had his unsung heroes for 2024 and listed Rogers for more or less that reason. Like, I mean, he deserved a tremendous amount of credit for not only like supporting Devon Williams Jr. when he took the job against Oregon, but sticking with the program through a bowl game, like, knowing that he had no future with the program on the field, that was definitely admirable. So, yeah.
He's thinking about things beyond football right now, though. Will Rogers is somebody who we will continue to hear his name. We may forget about it for a while, but it'll be like 5-10 years, and it'll be like, oh, the quarterback coach wherever is Will Rogers, is our old friend Will Rogers. They'll say it just like that.
Absolutely.
So
we'll toast to it.
It's unfortunate how that happened. If it does mean more money, I don't think we've heard anything about Thad Dixon yet, right?
We have not.
And I maybe would rather have a receiver than a quarterback, but if it's a money issue and not a position issue with Thad Dixon, maybe some money just opened up, because I do think that the spend for Jonte Cook was one of the higher ones this offseason.
One would think, yeah.
So
some other UW news. On 3.com, or CBS Sports, I should say, recorded that North Carolina is going to hire Washington. Let's see, let me get this title here. Defensive analyst and the secondary assistant director of recruiting Armand Hawkins is their defensive backs coach. So he's following Steve Belichick.
You have to be important with that many titles.
Well, I think that did reflect, even though he didn't necessarily have a specific assistant coach, like an assistant coach title, that he was a pretty important part of the program from a recruiting standpoint. And it's interesting that North Carolina within the last week has added 2 more UW transfers. Jason Robinson Jr., the wide receiver, and then safety Peyton Waters will not be
Peyton Waters
for the Huskies.
That's really funny.
I'm disappointed to report.
There's a familiarity with it. I'm not surprised. But again, those are players like Peyton Waters wasn't part of the team last year. He's somebody who
was part of the team last year.
He wasn't part of wasn't on the field that much. He was on the team, but he wasn't part of the defense that much last year. So that's all fine.
A couple other Huskies transfers announcing their destinations. Maurice Himes is headed to Idaho, and then Keith Reynolds, this came as a surprise to me, headed to Miami of Ohio. Like, he had, he contributed for the Huskies last season. I'm very surprised that he is not headed to a Power 5 team.
I guess so.
What do you mean?
I'm not that surprised about where Keith Reynolds ended up.
I don't know.
Because also,
I think he would be one of your. I mean, I guess maybe.
I think
Kevin
Rasheed
Green
Williams
Jr.
is going to be more important than you think right now. I like Rasheed
so.
Williams.
Keith Reynolds played more than Rasheed Williams last season.
He was young.
I mean, it's not an apples to apples thing, but All right, let's wrap up with the Seahawks, who have been reported is requesting interviews with 4 potential offensive coordinator candidates. Bears interim head coach Thomas Brown, who was previously the offensive coordinator in Carolina, also served as interim offensive coordinator in Chicago before taking over the head coaching duties. Lions offensive line coach Hank Fraley, Saints offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak, who is potentially out of a job in New Orleans with that coaching staff change, and as we talked about last week, is a popular candidate. And then the most recent candidate, Vikings assistant offensive coordinator / assistant QB coach Grant Udinski, who is 28 years old.
Oh my God. Wow.
I forget what the context was I was bringing that up. But
fair enough. You were talking about their rise. Yeah, I'm already too old of a basketball coach.
Yeah. Grant Udinski is.
Wait, what is Grant Udinski's background? I don't even know how you spell this.
That's a great question. Let's see here. He entered the NFL coaching ranks with the Panthers after spending the 2019 season at Baylor as a grad assistant. So he followed Matt Rule there. Well, oddly enough, his football experience, his college experience, he played defensive end at Towson from 2016 through 2018, and then one season at Davidson College as a tight end. So how you get from that to quarterback coach, I don't know, but clearly,
doesn't really look like a defensive end to me.
Well, Towson, it's not the same size you're seeing at the FBS level.
I don't like any of these.
You don't like any of them?
Do you?
I think Clint Kubiak would be a reasonable choice.
I like one of these. Yeah, Grant Udinski, the only thing he's missing out on is a little bit of nepotism. It's kind of crazy he got the job in the interview without it, to be honest. The only reason, I think the Saints, I don't know where they finished in the end. The Saints had moments last year.
They did not finish very well, but I think their quarterback play was pretty rough at times.
They had moments last year where it's like this team, they're punching above their weight a little bit, the Saints. And there's almost nobody else who would get credit for that besides Clint Kubiak. I guess I think Derek Carr is not a bad quarterback either, but
my reference to their quarterback play was not to the times that Derek Carr was on the field. He was listed as 240 when he played defensive end at Towson. I don't know. He does not look that big in his photo in college either, I gotta say.
Do we think that there hasn't been a Tanner Engstrom inquiry because it's just assumed he's going to be the Lions offensive coordinator once Ben Johnson leaves?
I don't know. It's a great question.
Is that if you were to basically tease it out, though, if you're moving all the way to offensive line coach, the Seahawks probably would like to talk to Tanner Engstrom.
You'd assume so, yes.
It might have made sense.
I don't think that they're like Hank Fraley is the real person behind this. Yes.
The offensive line coach as offensive coordinator. I'm trying to think. Have there been any that you could think of?
There have.
Who has been, not the Huskies, because that's not a real one. Don't give me Brendan Carroll. Somebody who's calling plays.
That's not who I'm giving you. Who? Ryan Grubb?
Ryan Grubb was an offensive line coach.
Yeah.
Two offensive
background.
Okay. Yeah. But also not exactly. And that didn't go well.
And then because he didn't want to run the ball. Very strange.
Kind of funny, actually. That's kind of strange. It feels like most of the people who come to this are coming from quarterback background, though. Something like that.
Correct. That's usually the transition.
And I was thinking about coaching opportunities as they happen. And as with all things, it's more or less luck, right? It is timing and luck and stuff like that. Like if you were to take Ben Johnson, just thinking about Bobby Slowick, right? CJ Stroud had a down year. Bobby Slowick now, I haven't seen him in any conversations for head coaching jobs, whereas last year he was.
Has not affected Kafka.
Kafka's not getting a job. He's not anywhere near these conversations, but he's getting the interviews. I don't know why exactly, but is Bobby Slowick a worse head coaching candidate this year than he was last year? Do you think he would be a worse head coach this season than he would have been had he been hired last season?
The answer is probably not. We have a degree more information about him, I suppose.
I think it's just so knee-jerk how these decisions happen, and it's fine. Like, I understand why that's the case, but it's basically a combination of, were you successful at another place? And for the most part, the reason that you were successful at another place is because of a number of factors, but ultimately it's pretty much talent. So Hank Fraley being somebody like Penei Sewell, as little as I want to admit it, is one of the best offensive linemen I've ever seen, right? Hank Fraley happens to be coaching Penei Sewell and the Lions offensive line. Penei Sewell is incredibly important to the Lions as they are constructed. He also was the second pick in the draft, I want to say, right? Second or third pick in the draft. And to give credit to Hank Fraley for that doesn't feel particularly right to me. He probably would have been
seventh pick. Yeah.
Was he?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, he was still a top 10 pick, right?
It's not like he just developed him out of obscurity. No, this was not a George Fant converted converted power forward situation.
I thought Sewell was drafted. Wow, that's a fucking steal where they got him. Charles Cross, please.
Charles Cross, his numbers were better than you'd think. The Charles Cross extension is going to be pretty mean.
I was thinking about most of the teams that had very good offenses, how almost all of them had an anchor offensive lineman. One phenomenal offensive. The Eagles have a handful, right?
I just wonder, to me, because like the narrative that's coming out of this weekend of NFL playoffs is like, oh, you look at all these teams, they dominated the offensive line, all the winning teams. And it's like, sure, but is part of it because of the fact that the personnel around, like the passing game around them, made the offensive line look better? Like, I don't know. I don't know that we can separate out that one factor. It's not like, well, all the Seahawks should do is invest entirely in their offensive line and forget about everything else. Like, I don't think that's a workable strategy.
I think it's important to have a phenomenally good anchor offensive lineman.
See, that's weird because my conception of offensive line is that it's much more, as we've talked about at times here, a weak link situation than a strong link. Whereas like receiver is much more a strong link. Like if you have a number one guy, well, there are certain teams can do to take him away. There's only so much you can do to take him away.
I wish I could pull up the PFF grades.
It doesn't matter how well your left tackle is blocking somebody if your right guard gets beat immediately.
I'm not sure if that's true though, because I think you can scheme around a very good and like the Lions are good at it, right? The Lions scheme around Sewell. They have a good offensive line overall, but they scheme around him personally and where he's at.
Well, especially with his pass catching ability.
And again, you look at a lot of those teams like Wirfs, like Mailata, those types of linemen are impact players on a game. And the Seahawks, I think Charles Cross could be that. Charles Cross could be there. And that's obviously the intent. They didn't draft him very far off from where Penei Sewell was drafted.
Ninth, right?
Right. But anyway, back to Hank Fraley. I just think that the Lions offensive line and offense overall was probably like, you have to get pretty far down the list to get to Hank Fraley's impact. And I would put his impact below personnel, obviously. Like, I think Ben Johnson's impact is probably lower than personnel also.
By the way, you know who else would be a plausible interview candidate from the Detroit Lions? You know who their quarterback coach is, right?
Mark Brunell.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of fascinating to me. Mark Brunell, how about this? It seems to me like Mark Brunell has done more with the position than Hank Fraley has done. Because Jared Goff, at that point, obviously, like pedigree-wise, he was the first pick in the fucking draft. But with where Jared Goff was perceived when they got him, Jared Goff is now considered, he was throw-in, right?
He wasn't a throw-in. He was a salary dump.
Yeah. And now Jared Goff, I would take him over Matt Stafford, right? So it's a little surprising to me that
all Stafford does is throw dimes and win playoff games.
He throws dimes straight to the ground. That should have been a fucking fumble. I'm sorry. I will never. The intent, it was a fumble. It was a scoop and score.
I don't think that we should be judging intent at all. If the ball goes forward, it's a pass. If it goes backwards, it's a fumble. That should be the rule. I don't see why this is controversial. At the very least,
it should be an intentional grounding.
I agree that it probably should have been intentionally
grounded the ball. He intentionally grounded the ball. He took the ball, threw it at the ground. He intentionally grounded it.
I think if referees had to call that over, they would have called that an intentional grounding.
Why couldn't they? They could have called it.
But they didn't, because I think they were just kind of confused in the moment.
Anyway, he sucks. So Hank Fraley is basically getting this interview because of the Lions' overall success. And again, when you look at it piece by piece, it's like all of the personnel, Ben Johnson, Tanner Engstrom, and then eventually you get to Hank Fraley. I'm like, okay, never called plays, offensive line coach. It makes me concerned about Mike McDonald. Same with Thomas Brown, right? Like Thomas Brown, I guess he was considered kind of a hot coordinator candidate a handful of years ago. But maybe similar to the Bobby Sloat conversation, we have a couple of years of evidence. They won a single game. He wasn't ready to be head coach of the Bears, but things got bad after he was head coach of the Bears.
Yeah, I wouldn't read anything into his head coaching. I mean,
would you read anything into his offensive coordinating?
I would. I mean,
because the offense was also very bad. And the Panthers, like, we're looking at back-to-back years that ultimately he's probably going to be fired 2 years in a row.
I don't know about that, but
you don't think the new Bears coach is going to bring in their own coordinator? Maybe. If he gets passed over for the job to move back to offensive coordinator, I would be very surprised if Thomas Brown would be that. And I'm just like, I don't really see it. Also seems to have a little bit of he was a running back, right? Background in running the ball. Mike Macdonald is telling us that they want to find the opposite of Ryan Grubb and is too much passing.
I mean, yes, but Quint Kubiak isn't really like the opposite of Ryan Grubb. I mean, my philosophy
I can't even remember his name anymore. Grant Udinsky. I'm like, that's just I don't even know. Definitely not the opposite of Ryan Grubb.
My philosophy on, certainly not in terms of having called plays in the NFL, my philosophy on coaching searches is to cast the widest net possible, because
I agree, but we're at 4 right now.
Well, they're not stopping at 4. I don't think that the search is anywhere near complete, because even if you don't even necessarily think there's a significant chance you're going to hire this person, you get to learn more about them in case they become a candidate in the future. And you also get to learn more about their organization. So if they weren't allowed to interview, or Tanner Anderson wasn't interested in interviewing with them because he expects to become the Lions offensive coordinator, then, or follow Ben Johnson or whatever it is, then they've learned something about the Lions organization and their offense.
Sure. Okay. So that's fine. But of these 4 candidates, I'm like, oh, okay.
I mean, it is a bit telling that, I don't remember exactly where the Saints finished in offensive EPA per play. I know it was very low, but that would be the one I'd be the most excited about hiring, probably.
I mean, there's only 2 of them who've called plays, right? Thomas Brown has called plays and Clint Kubiak has called plays.
Correct.
As offensive coordinator. I think Mike Macdonald might be a very good defensive coordinator. That is where I'm at with Mike Macdonald right now. It remains to be seen. And I think that people are having a hard time parsing the difference between a head coach and an offensive coordinator. I saw the quote, and who knows? Again, all of these things are fucking luck, right? For the most part. If you're successful for enough years in a row, then maybe it moves away from that. But even Mike Tomlin, right? He's never finished under 500. And people are like, maybe it's time for, and I'm just like, I don't know. I do not know. And I don't think anybody does. And I think it's really hard to separate talent from coaching ability. But I do know that there are people who have been successful as head coaches, and that it is a different job than being a good position coach. And I think we view it too much as a person who is a defensive-minded coach doesn't have a good defense, that's bad, which is not exactly always the case. Because sometimes you can have a bad defense and have Geno Smith as your quarterback and make the playoffs when that happens because you're a good head coach. And Pete Carroll is a good head coach. Pete Carroll is a good head coach.
I think Pete Carroll is a good head coach. I think he would be a good hire for the Bears in particular. I think it was definitely time for a change for the Seahawks.
That's fine, but I'm not convinced yet that Mike Macdonald made some of the positives he may have is that he's a defensive coach and his defense was a lot better. But the negative is he became the head coach and the offense got worse.
Well, I mean, that's something I want to get into more at a later date. We'll hope to have some more Seahawks content next week. But
we also have no evidence of him. I mean, like the record was good generally. Seeing Dan Quinn also, where I was like, I think people are forgetting that Dan Quinn led a team. He probably should have won a Super Bowl. Maybe we were forgetting about that also. Like Dan Quinn has he was a good defensive coordinator.
If your philosophy was, yes, Pete Carroll is a good head coach, but it's time for the Seahawks to have a different type of head coach. The issue with Dan Quinn is it would have been moving about 1 degree from the Pete Carroll direction. Although, I guess to the point you were about to bring up, Dan Quinn did coach very aggressively on 4th downs this season.
Did he?
Yeah.
I mean, Dan Quinn had an awesome season overall, right?
At least
everything
they were very successful at converting 4th downs, and he certainly was aggressive going for them on Sunday against Tampa Bay.
Happened back. I wasn't watching the end of that game. Back-to-back series, though, they went for 4th downs, or they missed one and then they got one.
Something like that, yes.
The Cliff Kingsbury hire was a good hire as it is right now. Again, it's hard to parse. Is Jaden Daniels just a generational quarterback, or has Dan Quinn done a good job? And I was reading the thing of Dan Quinn was talking to his coaches where he's like, I don't want any football talk, right? I want to spend hours for you just getting to know these players. And I'm like, Dan Quinn knows it is a different job. It's not just X's and O's figuring out a defense. That's a defensive coordinator's job. X's and O's figuring out the offensive plays. That's an offensive coordinator's job. It is a different skill set than just being a position coach. And I think that Dan Quinn, again, like the chances of Mike Macdonald ever leading a team to the Super Bowl are extraordinarily low. Not as an insult to Mike Macdonald, everybody's chances of leading a team to the Super Bowl are extraordinarily low. Yes. Any head coach who's not currently has not already done it, I would bet against them doing it. So
Washington was one of the most aggressive teams this season in going for fourth downs.
And they ended up running the ball a lot, but that's also because Jaden Daniels was a phenomenal running quarterback as well.
I mean, I'd say they let Jaden Daniels cook, that's for sure.
I don't know. Right now, if I had a preference, if you could just tell me, you could just go back and undo it, I would prefer Pete Carroll as head coach. I like Mike Macdonald. I'm still happy with Mike Macdonald generally, but I think the Seahawks had one of the 10 best head coaches in the entire world.
Well, we'll see if soon the Chicago Bears or the Las Vegas Raiders have one of the 10 best coaches.
I think the Bears, he makes the playoffs within 2 years. The Raiders, I have no idea.
Yeah, the Raiders are just such a rebuild job that it's tougher to say. He'd have to approach that like he approached coming into the Seahawks.
He also tore it down very successfully here and built it back up, you know?
Maybe the question is how closely he followed college football last year.
He was an analyst for the Seahawks. How could he have been paying attention to college football? He was analyzing all of those Seahawks games for the team.
Somebody running a Seahawks blog, please come up with a Pete Carroll report to the Seahawks from the 2024 season
for the team. He was paying so much attention to what the Seahawks are doing.
On that note,
anyway, I'm concerned, but it doesn't matter. Who cares? Thanks for listening. Have you gone to see it?
I went to see it last Saturday at the SIF Downtown Cinerama.
Oh, wow.
It's 3.5 hours long and features an actual planned 15-minute intermission. It's great. I feel like way more movies should have intermissions.
I totally agree.
Take away all of Martin Scorsese's awards for not including an intermission in Killers of the Flower Moon.
Maybe just for making Killers of the Flower Moon. Oh, wait, no. That's not the one I don't like. I take it back. I never saw Killers of the Flower Moon. It's the other one with the aged down people. That one is just like, you know what I'm talking about.
I do know what you're talking about. Yes, I don't know if I know the name of it off the top of my head though. I did not catch that one.
I watched some of it and I was like, you know what? I'm good. I feel like Adrian Brody had to have been in like up there with the most films that have been nominated for Best Picture.
He's good at making these award films. But I must say my review is Guy Pearce stole the film.
Wow.
Like, I totally get why Adrian Brody may also win the Oscar, but give all the awards to Guy Pearce is my take.
I'm in such a fucking mood. This is I don't know if this is gonna be like a podcast or something because it's not about anything, but I've just been so contrarian the last 2 days. I've been thinking so much about how people have opinions and that opinion is just reinforcing general stereotypes. And they're like, oh, what a good conversation. They're like, yeah, I really love music. I loved Espresso. I loved Good Luck, Babe. I'm just such a big music fan. And I'm like Luca was talking to me and he was like, do you think you have the best taste of anybody, any parent at the middle school? And I was like, did our team win the basketball game this weekend? And he was like, I don't know. There might be some parents like this baseball parent that we know. And I was like, yeah, I mean, like she likes like old school rap music and Kendrick Lamar and like Tyler the Creator. That's not good taste. These are the biggest artists in the entire world. And I'm just like, I was arguing, Kayleen was like, you can have like good preference for stuff that's good and popular. And I'm like, you cannot have good taste by only liking the most popular things in the entire world. And just like this shit, I'm sure this movie is good or whatever, but you can't.
The Brutalist is not the most popular movie in the world, Chief.
No, listen, wait for me to get to my take.
Okay.
I dislike A24 so fucking much. It's not that they're like making bad movies. The problem is
they're not.
A24 is making movies for people who want to like A24 movies. And then they're like, they make a movie tailor-made for people who like A24 movies. And then people are like, you made a really good A24 movie. It's this weird fucking back and forth between the two. So critics love it and they make the thing for the critics and it goes back and forth. And it's like, dog, can we just fucking stop for a second? You can't have good taste by only liking the thing that everybody likes.
What if there is no such thing as good taste?
Sure, that's fine too. But I just fucking hate this thing where people are like, I think that what is going to happen with culture in this next year, I think we're going to have a very big contrarian year and probably handful of years. Because I was thinking about this with pop music, with people being like indie kids and mainstream people all like the exact same thing for too fucking long. You have to have two different things. It can't all be the same.
You need something to rebel against.
Yeah. And so like a lot of people like Chappell Roan, who is like, and by the way, I pronounced her name right here. Didn't the entire music podcast. And I will never. But anyway.
I forgot how you pronounced it on the
I say
Chappell
Roan. Chappell Roan.
Rowan. Oh, okay. I was
how
even
it
going.
Should be pronounced. And that's how I will continue pronouncing it. But
this is a take.
The indie kids and mainstream people all like the same with a mini artists who are popular, right? It was everybody liked the same shit. And I'm like, you can't, like, this is not like interesting or good taste. This is the most popular thing in the world.
Can we talk about a Chuck Klosterman hypothetical here?
Yes.
This is in one of his books. He argues, what if you woke up tomorrow and all of your music taste had completely reversed? Like everything that you thought was above average before would be below average. Your favorite things would be your least favorite and vice versa. You still like music the same amount in total. You just like totally different stuff. He says, now I concede this would make you unhappy. Can you explain why? And obviously the reason for that is because of the fact that like we use our preferences to define our personalities and also to create the groups in which we hang out, which is why the Peltoncast Discord Venn diagram is just a circle, except for us in sci-fi. It's the only exception. Everyone else in there likes sci-fi.
There's a few. You were like, you don't know about this Lazio story, and I'm like, I don't go to the soccer channel, dog. Like, I don't venture up. That stays white. That's not click through.
Oh, you're missing good stuff in that soccer channel.
Like, you give me pod episodes.
Granted, sometimes you're missing details about Sounders roster transactions that you're not going to pay attention to during the rundown. But you also might
Huskies, Seahawks, Mariners, pod episodes, sometimes music.
Oh, you're not even reading asides?
Or
A-sides? Is it maybe known?
Not really, no.
Oh, I mean, there has been a lot of sci-fi talk the last couple of days, but you're missing out.
I'm fine with sci-fi. I'm not anti-sci-fi.
It's just not your thing.
Yeah.
In the way that it's a lot of people on the Discord.
The thing that Chuck Klosterman is not accepting is that there's no like, he's trying to acknowledge like what you cognitively are moved by in this scenario, because you don't like the things necessarily just based upon like literally the science of music. You like things based upon everything else. So if your music
culture
taste changed, you'd be like, I am this person now. Like there was a time, I've liked country music for a really long time, but I'm not going to say my hottest take, but I thought in my head today, I would much rather listen to Morgan Wallen than a very popular rapper right now. Now, that is, I'm not going to say who it is because it is too hot of a take and I don't want to hear complaining about it.
It's Kendrick Lamar.
It is absolutely not Kendrick Lamar.
It's not Kendrick Lamar.
The newest, current, most popular rapper.
So LiAngelo Ball?
Yeah. I would much rather
That wasn't a joke. LiAngelo Ball is huge now.
He spits.
I haven't listened to the song. I need to check it out.
Heidi Montag's huge also now.
What? That's not
number one track. Flava Flav is supporting her. The Spencer Heidi comeback in 2025, not a thing I predicted, but I am here for it.
It was not in the bold predictions.
I am here for it. Anyway, that might be part of this. I can't exactly figure out why. Somehow Heidi and Spencer are underground. They're rebelling against the mainstream. Kim Kardashian is the mainstream. Heidi and Spencer are underground. But that's not a thing that I would have thought probably 20 years ago, that I would like to listen to the most popular new country artist versus one of the most popular new rap artists. I'm not bothered by this information, though. I just think the new rap artist is bullshit. So.
But you also evolved over time. It didn't happen overnight.
I
you
guess
evolved
so.
with society to a degree on country music. It's not like
country
music's place
thing,
in the
this is actually
culture
another
has
part
also
of what
changed.
I've been so riled up about. Is I was doing a Peloton class and this girl was like, I was in my country era this year. And I'm like, you weren't in your country era. Sorry. Beyonce was in her country era. And there's so much more socio-political about what was going on with Beyonce in her country era. Unfortunately, it's unabashed capitalism that happened and global socio-political things, especially in the United States, that put Beyonce in her country era. The idea that you personally are defining yourself by this thing that Beyonce chose to do for capitalistic purposes is so fucking sickening to me. And I'm just like, I wish people understood why this was happening. Anyway, do you understand what I'm saying? It's like, you're like, oh, I'm in my country era now. It's like, no, you're not in your country era. Beyonce is. Chaperone might be in her country era. Those people are in their country era because they are reading the trends that are happening. It's all fucking planned by labels. Like, people understand what's going on in these trends, and they're like, country music is more popular now. Therefore, she was like, oh, Beyonce to country. It's like a tribute to her hometown of Houston. It's like she just decided one day to do a tribute. She forgot about her hometown
that she was from Houston
for decades. And then all of a sudden, country music became way more popular. And she was like, I've had this in me my whole time. And I'm like, dog.
Maybe she had just been waiting for the right moment.
Sure. That's great. I'll give Beyonce more credit than everybody else being like, I'm in my country era now, defining themselves. And I'm like, you're not. You are not. Sorry. You will be in whatever era after this. And that era is going to be the indie era because the mainstream is dead.
So is it going to be the A24 era then?
No. A24 is mainstream. That's what you don't understand. It is a fucking monolith.
I don't think it's a monolith. I agree that it's indie for people who don't actually want to be indie.
Yeah, it's like I like Dead Ocean's records. It's like, yeah, man, I'm into Mitski and Phoebe Bridgers. I'm fucking indie. Get out of here. There's no offense to Dead Oceans. It's good music, but like, it is the most popular indie music in the entire world.
I can't remember if I got this takeoff in the year in music that like people will define certain artists as calculated in their decisions, and I'm like, everything is calculated. Even the decision to not be calculated is calculated.
No, I've railed against this for so long. You know about how I don't believe that there's any true like
personality.
Self. There's personality, but there's not a true self or whatever. And it's basically just some people are better at not appearing calculated when being calculated. And after getting to know a bunch of people, the people who seem the chillest are often, when you get to know their decision-making and thought process, the most fucking calculated people in the entire world. So it's really just about like, there's a certain level of comfort, but I feel like it comes down to this, like basically what the kids would call aura or whatever. It's like how comfortable you seem doing things even when they're calculated. It's a very complicated thing to pull off, but yeah, everything's calculated. The same with like industry plant artists. It's like if an artist is like, I don't understand what the radius is that makes somebody an industry plant versus not an industry plant.
It's whether I personally like them or
not. That's I feel like what it comes back to.
100%.
Anyway, my point is A24's films may be fine. They may be good. They may be excellent.
They are. Many of them are good.
I will cheer against them more than anything. Forever.
Well, you're going to lose on this one.
But that's fine. Everybody can just they literally put out the A24 movies. People go into their little letterboxed or whatever, and they're like, this was the most A24 movie. It was amazing. A24 did the thing that it told me that I like. Fuck this. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. I also don't know that there's anything wrong with this.
No, it's fine. It's just literally people who are going to love whatever A24 puts out, telling A24 that they love whatever A24 puts out. Yay! It's fucking bullshit. Sorry, I've been very agitated about this particular thing. I think we're gonna have a big year. Hello.
That was gonna be the transition.